Hey everyone, and welcome back to Retirement Redefined. I am your host, Brad Gotto, here with my co-host, Carly Carlson. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about this concept of peak 65. What is it and why is it important? Carly, how are you?
Hey, Brad. I'm doing really well. I've been on the road. I was in Dallas at a conference and just flew back this morning, but it always feels good to get back home. Although, rainy Minnesota, it's a little gloomy and sad here.
It has been.
Yeah.
You didn't miss
No,
much when you were gone.
yeah,
I know you've been gone since the beginning of the week. How was the conference?
it was great. I do this conference 3 times a year and it's a coaching group for a bunch of business owners. And it's really nice to kind of get back together. It's like seeing old friends and learning and growing our businesses together, kind of running that race. So it's been really fun.
Yeah.
But what about you? What's
Uh,
what's been new? Baseball
well, the
get
funny
run
thing is
run or
a
rained
week
out?
behind. I was in Dallas
That's
last
right.
week at getting coached. I do a lot of coaching, but I also pay to be coached. I just always think that we can be better at what we do and our craft. And so I was just doing that last week. And yeah, this week was supposed to be chocked full of baseball. The calendar actually had me pretty stressed out. But it's just been solid rain. And so
Yep.
it's just been cancellation after cancellation, which is delayed. It's essentially just going to make everything else stink, from a calendaring perspective, that much more in the future. It's all going to get rescheduled.
Oh, we had
And
our
so,
lacrosse rained out and they just canceled it. Like no reschedule. They just said the
oh,
season's almost
well,
done. We're not going to try to cram it in. Not true for baseball?
that's not, no, that's not what's
Oh,
happening. All these games they're getting rescheduled. So, we'll just pay for it in the next week or two.
yeah. Well, and all the time you thought you had open on the calendar, all of a sudden is full. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I never think I have time. I'm always surprised to find out when I do have time. It's always like
Okay.
this random, anyway, you get the point.
Yes.
So, um, with that being said though, 11,000 people a day. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not just during the work week, right? It's funny because that was a realization for me when I started reading this. I was like, man, 11,000 people 5 days a week. And I'm like, no, it's not 5 days a week. It's every day.
Every day.
Are turning 65, this baby boomer generation. I have a quick question for you.
Okay.
Do you know what the years of the baby boomers are?
Oh gosh. No. Um, yeah. What would that be?
I'll give you a hint. They were born after World War II.
Right?
Obviously, that's when it started. I'm,
What
I'm
I
totally
mean,
putting you on the
if we
spot,
go
which is not
60
fair.
years back, that puts us in the 60s, right?
That's when some of them are being born then, but some of the boomers are older than that.
Okay.
So,
Is it a wider
46,
like because now
yeah,
each
46 to
generation is getting
64.
narrower and narrower, right?
Yes,
Okay.
46 to 64. So, post
Oh.
World War II, 1945 it ends. 1946, baby boomers start being born, and now it's all the way through 1964, which is also the year the Beatles came to America.
Well, you know me and music, I would not have been able to tell you that.
Yeah, I know. I asked you a question a long time ago about who your favorite band was, and you couldn't even tell me the name of a band, let
I
alone
couldn't come up with the Beatles. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Which is, we're not gonna hold that against you. We're just gonna move on. So this topic of peak 75, 65 a day every year or
It's
every day in 2025.
11,000 a day.
Uh, what did I say?
65 a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're turning 65.
Yes. Yeah.
11,000 people are turning 65 every single day. Actually, we just wrote a blog about this. And so if you want more information than just what Carly and I are going to cover in this 20-30 minute podcast, I'd encourage you to go check out fiatwm.com, and under the Fiat U, which is kind of our education tab, you'll find all of our blogs. But we wrote a more detailed blog on this very topic. It might help spark some thoughts and conversation for you. But what I want to talk about, Carly, is what does it feel like to turn 65? Kind of that mix of excitement, fear,
Mm.
relief, uncertainty. And I know you're on the tax side, but I know even on the tax side, as your specialty, you've dealt with people that are selling businesses or going into retirement. And so
Mhm.
just out of curiosity, what has been your experience as far as people's emotions as it relates to nearing or getting into retirement, or even like selling that business and retiring early, even if it's not age 65?
Yeah. I mean, I think my experience is that, first of all, most of my clients are business owners. And so they're maybe used to some kind of volatility in their life, but also some control over that.
Yeah.
Like there's an understanding of how what they do in their business affects their income. And when we get into retirement, I think that sense of control, it feels like there's a lot of just question marks and not really
Yep.
understanding how much money do I truly have to live off of? What can I draw from? When can I draw from it? And what does that mean for me for taxes all of a sudden? Where you might have built an understanding over the career of building your business or, career of earning your income, like how you're taxed and at what rates. And now we're drawing from different types of income and not really understanding how that's going to affect what you pay in taxes. And then how, you and I have talked on other episodes that there's also a change in how you pay in taxes a lot of the times.
Yeah.
So most business owners still take a salary from their business. And so they have taxes coming out of their paycheck. And if you aren't a business owner and you're a W-2 employee, then your whole career you've had taxes paid in through your paycheck. And then you go to retire, and all of a sudden you're drawing from retirement accounts and Social Security and maybe some taxable investments that have no taxes taken out. And so now we have to
Yeah.
switch to this quarterly payment model. And that's a whole new feeling and also a little scary to have these big chunks of money that you have to write to the government 4 times a year. So I think just a lot of uncertainty is what I would say is
A
really
lot
the
of fear
feeling.
around the financial piece,
Yes.
right? It's
Yeah.
just different. Everything's different,
Yeah.
right? You go from, you yourself being a machine that spits out money every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever it may be, to that machine being shut off and having to live on what you've saved can be a daunting thing. But the other side of it's the emotional side. And so I'm going to pose a question to you that I think is interesting. Let's just say hypothetically, you were going to retire today.
Peace.
What would you do? What's your day look like? What are you going to fill the rest of your day with?
Oh, well, you and I have talked, I think, philosophically that we as human beings need some sort of purpose. And
Yep.
so I am not sure that I really believe in like a traditional retirement of the like, and now I just put my feet up on the coffee table and sit back. Like I think there is something really important about finding something that you're still passionate about. And even if that's a hobby and you're not like collecting a paycheck. For me, I love the idea of travel and getting to see the world. And, I'd hope that at some point in the future, maybe I have grandkids and I'm playing with my grandkids and spending time with family. Um, we live in Minnesota, but I'd say spending as much time outside as possible.
In the 3 months a year that we have
Yes,
to do that
exactly. Well, yeah.
comfortably. My point in asking
Yeah.
the question is, this is one of the problems I think people don't think about when they're nearing retirement or they get into retirement is not just the everything that you brought up before, which is the more of the financial
Yeah.
side of it is, well, what am I gonna do? And one of the most interesting things in my 19th year in
Mhm.
this business has been watching that kind of mental exercise. And unfortunately, a lot of advisors and tax
Yeah.
preparers that are helping clients that are in that aren't helping their clients think through that conversation of not just the spreadsheet side and can you quote unquote afford to retire and how do we pay your taxes and
Mhm.
how do we devise a paycheck that's tax efficient and that kind of stuff. But like, what are you gonna do? And as an example, a lot of, and I know this about you because you're very passionate about what you do. Like a lot of the identity that you have in finding purpose in
Yeah.
life is helping your clients. And if you were to retire today, you lose that. And so where do you find that new identity? I mean, Drew Carey's no Bob Barker. And so we're not gonna sit around every day and watch The Price is Right because he's not good anymore. At least that's my opinion. And so what I think as a practical matter, that I love to talk to people about is
Mm.
practicing retirement.
Mm.
We practice everything else, right? Like your hobbies and
Sure.
sports and just all that kind of stuff or being better at what you do. If you've if you've worked your entire life, you've never retired before.
Mm.
You've never done
Yep.
it. It's brand new. And so this concept of this phase of life where you just don't have to get up and go to work every day is something you should practice. And so I like to talk to people about like maybe the year that you're going to, before you retire, 2 years, 3 years before you retire, take some time off if it's possible. It's not possible for everybody, but a significant amount of time, a couple weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. And maybe you're the person that wants to move. You want to live in Florida or something like that. Go do it and see how it feels and see if you're bored out of your mind, if you love it. Maybe you realize that there's no CMs in Florida and you've never even heard of that bug before, and you're like, "I don't even like these things. I don't know why I wanted to live in Florida," or whatever it may be, but kind of practicing this new
Mm.
rhythm of life just from a lifestyle perspective and trying to put a ton of thought into what you just got done trying to answer, which is where am I gonna find purpose? Where am I gonna find meaning? What am I gonna fill my time with? What hobbies do I have? It seems to me that the new new like glorified hobby for everybody is pickleball.
Oh, that's a big one. I actually got pickleball. What are they called?
Paddles.
Paddles. I was gonna say mallets. I was like, that's hard. My next thing I was gonna say is I haven't used them. Can you tell?
You're a huge pickleballer.
Big pickleballer.
I don't own a paddle. I've never played pickleball, and I still knew that it was.
Yeah.
That's fine. But at least you have one.
I do have one. Someday we'll get out there.
But you haven't used it yet, like at all.
No.
But that tends to be a big. My stepmom. Is that right? I always forget how this. My dad's current
Yes. Yeah.
not my mom. It's my stepmom, right? Gosh, I'm so bad.
I think you overthought that.
Yeah, I did. I overthink a lot of things. I don't know if you knew that about me. She's really into pickleball, and she just went to the doctor. She'd have all this hip pain.
Oh gosh.
She's a very healthy, in her mid 60s. This exact person we're talking about. She's very healthy and she's in shape. And he was like, it's pickleball. You got to stop shifting left and right so much. That's why your hips hurt. So he basically took her. He's like, you got to stop playing pickleball for a while. He was very sad. But practicing retirement, I think, is a really good idea because it's going to help you understand what you're getting yourself into. Because humans, I just got done doing an inner circle workshop on behavioral finance. We tend to think the grass is always greener on the other side.
Yep.
Right. And so you think, well, it's got to be better to not work than it does to work. Right. And then you get there, and like my dad is one of those people. My dad retired, and I worked my butt off for that guy to help him get to retirement.
How long ago was that?
I'm going to say 4 years ago.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think 4 or 5 years ago. The dude was retired for 6 months, and it was like, I'm bored. Like and he's working again.
Yes.
And I was like, dude, now it's a part-time job. It's not a full-time job. And my dad's one of those people that's never met a stranger in his entire life. He knows everybody. You could be like, drop him off in the middle of Mississippi or Wyoming, and somebody would be like, Doug Gotto.
Yeah. I would agree. Having met your dad, yes.
Yeah. So now he's a shuttle driver, a courtesy driver, for a car.
Perfect.
Place where you go get your car fixed.
Oh my gosh.
He loves it.
Yes.
He's sitting in a car with people talking and chatting.
Yeah.
With him. But anyway, figuring out how you're going to spend your time, what your passions are, relationships, if you need more space in life, emotional shifts, saving to spending. And so I'm going to ask you this question. What do you think is the biggest habit you have in life? What's a habit that the people around you would all be like, oh yeah, that's Carly makes her bed every day. She has to make her bed every day. Like what would you say is a consistent habit for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I love to cook. So I'm like cooking dinner for my family every night is really big. But then if you look at my calendar, it's the going to work. Like that's probably where's the biggest chunk of your day,
Yeah. It's changing those habits.
Right.
Because what I want to transition the conversation to here is going back to the money part of it. For the better part of 20, 30, 40, 50 years, depending on when you retire and how long you've been working, your primary goal, other than just living your life and making enough money to pay your bills and to live your lifestyle, is to save money.
Right.
And then you get to retirement, and the primary job of your money is no longer growth, although growth is important. We don't want to give up on that. But it's not the primary job anymore. Now the primary job of your money is to be spent for income, for cash flow, to pay bills and do all that kind of stuff. And this has been the hardest part of my job here at Fiat. I feel it's so important that I wrote a book about it. And I didn't even really want to write a book, but I just felt like I had to, because people won't spend their money.
Yeah. Well, they spent their whole career putting money in the bank, and now all of a sudden all you're doing is taking money out. And you're not seeing money go in. Obviously that takes, that ignores growth and anything else going on in your portfolio, but that's psychologically, that's a really big shift.
It is. And I'm curious for you, are you one of those people that when you put money in your savings account, is it really hard for you to take it back out?
Yes, for sure. It's in my savings account for a purpose.
But even when that purpose comes, it's hard to take it back out, because you're like, because you watch your savings account go up, and it's like you get your first $1,000, and then it hits 5, and then it hits 10, and then it hits whatever. And then you get to these watermarks, these kind of high watermarks, and you never want to see it go backwards.
Yes.
And so then what ends up happening to retirees that I see all the time, Carly, is let's say their savings account hit a new watermark of $100,000. Now this isn't the retirement money or whatever. I'm just talking about your savings account, and something happens in life. Like it could be a negative thing. It could be something like car breaks down or
Mm,
whatever. Or it could be a positive thing. Like your friends call you and say, we want you to go travel, and go on this vacation with us. There's 3 couples going and you're, blah, blah,
yeah.
blah. We want you to join. So positive or negative. But in order to fix the negative or take advantage of the positive, you have to tap into savings. What I see more often than not is people don't do it. They will make sacrifices because they can't behaviorally get themselves to take money out of their accounts.
Yeah.
Um, and so having financial plans put in place so that you can get permission to do that becomes really important when you're, we use the age turning 65 because it's an easy statistic to use. There's 11,000 of you a day doing this. Hopefully some of you are listening to this podcast. It'd be nice if all 11,000 of you every
Yeah.
single day were listening to this podcast. But understanding that mental transition and the
Mm,
reason that you saved it was for the purpose of this rainy day,
yeah.
positive, negative, or neutral, becomes a really hard place
Yeah.
for retirees.
I mean, I see that with my business owner clients too, right? Like each business owner kind of has a number in their head that if their bank account falls below that number, and it's not the same for each person, but if it falls below that number, all of a sudden there's like this sense of panic that there's not enough money in that account. And then trying to manage around that and helping them understand what they truly need for cash flow and where's the best way to invest those funds. And
Yeah.
it's another, it's, building the money in your bank account and in your savings account, like that's a relatively easy financial concept for people to get, that like saving. And then
Yep.
the other side, again, the understanding kind of when you can spend it and how much you can spend, it gets way more complex and it's not so straightforward for someone to like Google and figure out what
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that being said, I think this is a great time to transition to kind of the next part of our conversation, which is to talk about what's really changing in retirement planning. So, Brad, I'd love to hear from you. We've got a decline in pensions, there's more complexity and market volatility. So, what do you kind of see as what's changing in retirement planning and how that's affecting the families we serve?
Yeah, I think changing assumes it just started to happen. I don't think that's true. I think
Mm,
it's been changing. In fact, I think our industry was a little bit behind. I think we, unfortunately, the financial services, financial advisor space was kind of caught on its heels with this baby boomer generation retiring. Because if you think about it, Carly, they're the first generation ever, period, ever, to attempt to do what they're doing. They're trailblazers. And what I mean by that is kind of what you laid out. They're the first generation where the primary driver of their retirement is the money that they saved.
mm,
Number one. In other words, pensions are a dying breed,
right.
right? This idea or concept that you're going to live off the back of a traditional pension through your employer and a social security check just aren't real
Hmm.
anymore. And so the average retiree is living on what I lovingly or very call the pile,
Yeah.
the money that they've saved. So that's one big thing. The second big thing is how long they're retiring.
Mm,
They retire, if you retire at 65, you may have 30 more years or more
yeah.
that now that pile has to do something meaningful. And
Mhm.
and probably the most extreme point here is in the fact that they're the first generation to ever do this is if you think back to their parents, the baby boomers' parents, right? This is
Mm,
the World War II generation. Um, they if they did retire, like I said, it was on a pension. And if they did retire, at maybe 65, 70, their life expectancies weren't as long.
right.
And so they weren't living 20, 30-year retirements. And then if you think even one generation further back, so like the baby boomers' grandparents, which isn't even that long ago,
Mm,
right? 120 years ago, how did they retire? Well, they didn't. They worked and they died. Like that's on the whole. I'm painting with a broad brush, obviously, but like this concept that you and I are talking about it is new for this generation. It's not new as of yesterday, but it
mm,
is new for this generation. And so there's a lot of change going on out there. And financial planning needs to adapt. Financial advisors need to adapt. This idea or concept of just helping people grow piles of money and grow wealth is great. It's a
mhm.
noble cause. But we need to have a specialty in distribution planning. We need to have a specialty in figuring out how to take the wealth and the estate that our families have created, put meaning and purpose behind it, and a distribution plan that they can feel comfortable with, to give them the permission to spend the money for the reasons that they saved it. And so there's a lot. We could do multiple podcast episodes on that. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, bringing certainty to that place starts with education. We are big on education here at Fiat, giving the education what it means to be retired financially, and then helping you implement that education. So I think that's a great place to start.
Well, and I was going to ask, so what on the wealth management side, like what is
Yeah.
Fiat doing to kind of support all of this change in retirement? You just alluded to some education. What else are you doing on the
Well,
wealth
that's
management
a
side?
great question,
Yeah.
Carly. Thank you for asking, because that's exactly what
Yeah.
we do here at Fiat. Like, jokes aside, Fiat was built for the express purpose. We don't only work with baby boomer clients and pre-retirees and retirees, but it is our specialty. Okay. We specialize in income planning, distribution planning, and teaching people how to retire. Um, it was one of those deals, Carly, where early in my career, it was like a see a need, meet a need.
Mm,
I learned when I busted into this industry how to help people grow piles of money, because that's how financial advisors are trained. Like, this is right out of the CFP manual. And what I was never taught was to teach people how to spend their money. And when I started encountering people that wanted to retire, I was like, gosh, I don't know how to tell them to do this. I don't know what's the right way to distribute assets. I don't know if we take pre-tax money first, after-tax money, or Roth money. I don't know if we do a combination. I don't know what's an appropriate safe withdrawal rate. I don't know, what I should bake in for average healthcare costs. I don't know if they need long-term care, don't need long-term care. I don't know if I should plan a 20-year or 30-year retirement. Just all these things that I was like, gosh, this is a problem. I was trained, but not in this area.
mm,
And so basically sought out to be that person, to have a specialty, and we sought out the specialty in distribution planning. And so, practically speaking, this is what we do all day, every day, is help build financial plans to teach people how to take that money, that hard work, that money they worked really hard for, and turn it back into a paycheck. Now, to be clear, that paycheck doesn't have to be for you, and it doesn't have to be for a vacation,
mm.
because I get a lot of people, Carly, that go, well, I'm good. Like,
Sure.
my Social Security and my whatever is enough for me. I don't need access to the rest of the money. But they're not gonna bury you with it, right? You have to do something with it. And so inside of all of that, creating meaning and purpose, not just for your day-to-day, so you don't have to watch Drew Carey at 10 o'clock in the morning because he's just not Bob Barker, but also giving meaning and purpose to your finances.
Yeah. I just talked to a family yesterday, actually, while I was at the conference, and they were saying that, they inherited some money and that was a real blessing. And so they said that we feel like we have a responsibility to also then pass that on to our kids and not just live off of it. So they were kind of expressing a little bit of what you're saying. Yep, we need some
Yeah.
money to live off of. But I also feel like we need to make sure that we're, honoring the gift that we received and continuing to pass that gift on to our kids. And I thought that was really special too. And probably something that a lot of the families we work with also would,
Yeah,
feel the same.
for sure.
Yeah.
And one of the problems of what you just laid out is a lot of people think that way. They're like, well, I want to spend some of it, but I also want to give some of it
Mhm.
to my family or to a charity or
Yeah.
whatever. And without defined goals that you're seeking and ideas, if those don't become concrete in a material way, what ends up happening is you feel uncomfortable with both,
Mm,
because you're scared of spending it because you feel like you might be dipping into your kid's inheritance,
sure.
or you spend too much of it and realize you just did dip into your kid's inheritance. And so, without putting like numbers and meaning and purpose behind those things and helping define those goals and become comfortable with it, retirement can kind of get a little bit messy. And it is a new phase of life. And so I think that's a great place to kind of wrap up this conversation, Carly. This idea, I know we kind of tease it's a little bit new, but it's not, right?
Yeah.
Because the baby boomers didn't just start retiring. This concept of retirement isn't necessarily new, but what is new is the different challenges that our people are facing, right? These longevity challenges, the lack of pensions, and things that we mentioned before. If that is you and you're nearing or in retirement, and you have more questions, or you're just wondering how to do this well, that's exactly what we do all day, every day here at Fiat. And so we would love an opportunity to chat with you. If you're new to the podcast, we would encourage all of you to subscribe, share, share with your friends. This concept of peak 65 or retirement or whatever you want to call it is kind of a once in a lifetime shift in your life. It's a really important transition, but that transition can be it is very personal, but it can be peaceful and it can be purpose driven, and that's something that we want to help you do. It's just really important, and we want to
Mhm.
help you do that. So I would encourage you guys not only to subscribe to this podcast, but to read the blog on our website that goes into some of these details. goes into it in a lot more detail. Share this episode with your friends that are turning 65 or that are nearing or in retirement. Subscribe, like I said before. And last but not least, feel free to visit our website, Fiat, FIATWM.com, for more tools, more resources, and more education. Carly, thanks as always for joining me for this episode of Retirement Redefined. And we'll see all of you in a couple weeks.
Glad to be here. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views and opinions of Fiat Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.